Well, dodgy as they come. I want that out in the open. Dodgy.
Do you have sugar in your tea or not?
Not a joke.
tea. Terrific. All right, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, thank you for your attendance and all those viewing online. Today we're having our ordinary meeting of Council Public Forum. Today we will be webcasting, so a reminder to those in attendance that you should refrain from making any defamatory statements, and to the gallery that the use of a recording device is a breach of the code of meeting practice. So if we could just respect that, that would be appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could stand for our acknowledgement of country and prayer. Yass Valley Council recognises the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of the land, water and sky. We pay our respect to their elders past, present and future emerging leaders. We extend our respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live in the Yass Valley local government area. Now the prayer. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help, or take this moment to reflect. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of Yass Valley. Amen. Please be seated. Are there any apologies? We have Councillor Flannery online. Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and we hope to have Councillor Carter online as well shortly. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interests or special disclosures, councillors? We'll now move to our public forum speakers before the presentation to council. Ladies and gentlemen, a bit of housekeeping. It's 3 minutes. You will get a warning bell. So the first bell, you still have some time, and then the final bell, I'll need you to wrap up. Speaking to us on item 6.1 via Teams for development application DA260104 for the manufactured dwelling 92 Woodbury Drive, Sutton. Is Ms. Liz Slapp, who is the applicant, speaking for the recommendation in the business paper.
Is that a cue for me to get started? Sorry.
Terrific, Liz. I wasn't sure if that was you or the next speaker. So terrific, Liz. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks so much. Yeah, so as per what was just said, my name is Liz Slapp. I'm a qualified town planner with Plan Town Planning Solutions, and we are the new applicant for the DA as mentioned, which is item 6.1 of the meeting agenda. Both myself and the proponent have read through council staff's assessment report and strongly concur with the outcomes and the recommendations made. As you will have noted, the proposed development is compliant with the aims, objectives and development standards prescribed by the Yass Valley LEP 2013 and is compliant with the relevant development objectives and controls of the Yass Valley DCP 2024. In relation to the concerns that were raised in the public submissions and by council staff during their assessment of the DA, I note that all have been satisfactorily addressed, as is detailed in the agenda and the assessment report. Notwithstanding, the proponent has asked that I reiterate the following main points for you. The proposed development has been modified to ensure that all works are now located within the biodiversity certified land component of the subject site, being the building and driveway envelopes and effluent management zones as registered on the title. The proposed development has been repositioned within the registered building envelope so as to avoid impact to an existing large eucalyptus tree, which is located within the adjoining avoided land component of the subject site. And so whilst the manufactured dwelling is now located clear of the tree protection zone, it is still noted to be partially within a fall zone associated with a secondary side leading trunk. To mitigate the future risk to human safety, the proponent accepts the recommendations of Council's tree officer and understands that Council will impose a development condition requiring that a tree modification project plan be submitted to Council for approval prior to any works commencing. The early installation of the underground rainwater tank was undertaken as exempt development. And whilst we acknowledge that some minor earthworks occurred or extended beyond the extent of the registered building envelope, the proponent is committed to mitigating the minor impact by replenishing the native ground cover landscape in accordance with the Biodiversity Management Plan and the adopted Woodbury Ridge landscape guidelines. And finally, since the completion of council staff's assessment report, the proposed development has now gained the approval of the Woodbury Ridge Design Review Panel, with the plans being stamped and reissued back to the proponent on the 14th of July 2026. So overall, and in my professional opinion, the proposed development presents a measured and good design outcome for this site, and is certainly compatible with the character of the emerging Woodbury Ridge estate. And so, yeah, I would ask for your support of the application and would be pleased to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Slapp. Councillors, do we have any questions?
Yes. How
Councillor Cameron.
close is the tree to the building? You're talking about a fall zone. How extensive is the fall zone?
The fall zone was something that came about when council's tree officer reviewed the revised application. I don't have the exact dimensions in front of me right now, but the tree's got a side lean on it, so its secondary trunk leans towards the dwelling, and it would only be the part of the dwelling or the roof line associated with the covered veranda which would be impacted. So it's not like if the tree limb was to drop that it would take out the whole dwelling. It would probably just take out or may potentially impact part of the veranda structure, is my understanding. And so the biodiversity guidelines that have been adopted out at Woodbury Ridge do provide scope for landowners to modify tree canopy for some of the existing trees that are to be retained where there could be a risk of human safety.
Thank you.
It's not like it's 1 or 2 meters. It's a decent dimension.
Thank you, Ms. Slapp. Are there any further questions, councillors? Councillor Cherry.
Madam Mayor, thank you. It's just a question with regards to the review panel. Let me just, get to that. Design review panel approval, which you've mentioned, and the objections that have been presented. In your opinion, noting that you are a town planner, do you believe that those objections have been addressed in the additional components of the development application, and is that to a satisfactory standard?
Yes, I do believe so. I've been involved with the Woodbury Ridge project right from rezoning, so I've had a lot of experience with this site, and as well with the adopted architectural design guidelines that the developer has adopted. And so I think some of the concerns originally and that were as raised in the submissions was that the proponents didn't originally submit their plans to the design review panel for their consent prior to lodgement of the DA. That was an oversight by the proponent, who was somewhat confused by the process, and the original town planner wasn't aware that this pre-lodgement process even existed. So when I found out about it, we very quickly gave the plans to the Woodbury Ridge Design Panel for some initial feedback. And as part of that process, there was some concerns that were raised in terms of the overall aesthetics of the dwelling. And so we have worked with them to make sure that the aesthetics of the dwelling now match in with the adopted architectural design guidelines for Woodbury Ridge. And so that they talk about neutral materiality, a mixture of materiality to the facade that fronts onto the main internal roadway, being Woodbury Drive. And so that for this one involved the introduction of some natural timber work to the front veranda and the supporting posts, just to break up the facade, and also to screen in the subfloor level. The manufactured dwelling will sit on some pier footings or pier foundations, and so they're sort of wrapping wrapping the exposed subfloor area in natural timbers, which sort of helps to break up the facade and makes it more in keeping with the emerging character of Woodbury Ridge. So yes, in my opinion, I think it's a nicely done manufactured dwelling. It's not a dumpy that you'd see out in the middle of a mine site. It's a properly designed dwelling, and it'll look quite good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slapp. Any further questions, councillors? Okay.
Yes, please.
Councillor Flannery.
Thank you. I'm not an expert in this area at all, but my understanding of the biocertification process is that when the the trees are assessed on the site, and then the building blocks are positioned within the blocks, and so the developer pays an amount for the trees that are removed and trees that are identified that are, you get environmental credit. So I'm just a bit interested as to why the proponent couldn't fit their house in the building envelope that would have been part of the original biocertification process. Is it larger, or did they not like the site that was sort of picked out, or?
Yeah, so I wasn't involved with the original application, but from my understanding, it was that the manufactured dwelling and the carport structure associated with that was located within the building envelope, but it was actually they had proposed a loop driveway arrangement, and part of the loop driveway arrangement actually extended beyond the building envelope and driveway envelopes. And so it was that part of it was impacting on the avoided land component. And so when I got my hands on it, I said, you need to get rid of the loop road arrangement and just have the driveway wholly contained within the building envelope or within the driveway envelope that is registered on the title. The dwelling and the carport structure have always been within the building envelope. It's just their positioning in the building envelope since I got involved has been to shift them further towards Sutton Road or further to the back of the building envelope so that we can get ourselves away as far as possible from that tree that sits in the avoided land component, which is to the southeast of us.
Okay, thank you. I've got one other question, but just before that, David Carter is trying to log in, but his Teams link isn't working. Could someone just send him the Teams link? Someone in the meeting, could they resend the Teams link to David Carter, just so I can ask another question? Otherwise, I'll do it. Is that okay, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting the same message.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Elizabeth, my real concern with this, and I can see all the, the pros and cons, but my real concern is the Blakely's red gum had been, and I'm not quite sure if its status now, an endangered species. And one of the reasons that it would have been marked for retention is because it had a whole lot of environmental values. And I know people have values, but if we can do many things to retain trees. Now, with the tree that's identified as having hollows, it's plus 200 years old. Like, hollows don't form really in trees that are less than that age. And so it is environmentally significant, whereas a carport or a manufactured building is something that, regardless of the quality, is something that can be made again. But we need to wait 200 or 300 years to get these species back. And so that is, I don't really have a question for you, but that's my concern about how, why if it was identified as part of the biocertification process, can something be reconfigured so that it's not in that fall zone? Because I just know, and I mean, people can give me a million guarantees that no, we'll be right. But once that house is there and people are there, the risk immediately increases. And so, you can understand, it says in the report that it's known to drop limbs, which all trees drop limbs. It's not just this one in particular. So I kind of think that that's a bit of a misleading comment. But my real concern is around what else could we do to try to reposition that house so that, it's not just the tree, it's all the other insects and hollows and fungi that go with it that really then there's not many left of them. And so getting rid of a tree, or not getting rid of, but modifying a tree
Councillor-
that's
Councillor-
pretty old. Yep, I'm
Yeah,
finished.
Sorry, Councillor Flannery. There's no tree removal in this instance.
No, I
It's-
just corrected myself. I said modifying a tree that's old already does present more dangers, like more things coming into it. So it's a little bit like giving an older person a whole lot of stimulants. Like,
Just get the building moved.
is there a way that the tree could be not in the fall zone?
I think
The building.
I think to answer the question, I think the concern is completely valid. And if it was up to the proponent, they would keep the tree as it is, irrespective of the risk. They've designed it because they want to live. They've bought this property out at Woodbury Ridge because of the values that it has and the setting that it has. And so they're not a proponent that just, once they put their dwelling up, they're going to cut down the tree. That's certainly not what they're like. The fall zone has been something that's really come about with council's tree officer, and realistically, the proponent would be happy to keep the tree as it is without any modification. They're not concerned about it being
That's
close
what I
to
was
the
actually
dwelling.
wondering. Why are we modifying?
But the intent of the modification, I mean, it's a secondary leading trunk. It's not the main trunk of the tree. And the tree officer, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I believe that council's tree officer is of the opinion that it can be slightly modified so that we're preserving the long-term health of the tree, but also mitigating potential risk of harm for humans into the future. And so, yeah, it's something that has really purely been raised by council staff. I wasn't aware of fall zones when I came into this process, so I knew that eucalyptus drop limbs, but it's they're not a proponent that wants to cut the tree down. They want to retain it, and to be honest, we have really moved the dwelling as far back into the building envelope as we can, with the intent being that we are trying to preserve as much of the building envelope further to the north for the primary residence to be constructed in the future, which would form part of a separate DA. So it would be a primary dwelling and a secondary dwelling, but more like a dual occupancy in this sense, a detached dual occupancy. So it's look at if council.
Ms. Lab, I think we've adequately answered that question. So you've
Okay.
ascertained that the building has been moved as far back into the envelope as possible. So that's the secondary issue of whether or not it should form a condition of the development application will be something that can be debated on Thursday. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6.2, which is 6.2, development consent DA 240276, the draft voluntary planning agreement for 29 lot subdivision 2402 Sutton Road, Sutton. Speaking for the recommendation in the business paper is Ms. Liz Densley, the consultant speaking on behalf of the applicant. And Ms. Densley is here with us.
Thank you.
I'd just like to welcome Councillor Carter, who's just appeared online as well. Thank you. You're right to go.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, senior staff. I'm just here to speak for this recommendation. Firstly, to thank the staff for getting us to this point. It's been quite a long road in the background. We've been going on this planning agreement on and off for around 12 months just to get to here. As the report notes, voluntary planning agreement came about. Initially, it was just around dedicating the land that's already zoned, identified on the riparian zone as open space. There were issues raised by the council and also the community in response to submissions to the original DA around the safety of terminating a trail at Sutton Road adjacent to or close to that low-level causeway without any resolution in how you would get a pedestrian across the causeway in its current form. So we amended the planning agreement to include the pedestrian bridge, originally adjacent to or alongside that causeway. Without going into the design considerations around that, it was problematic, to say the least, to put a raised pedestrian bridge next to a low-level causeway. So it's been relocated. We've done some preliminary design and costings. Really mindful that the pedestrian bridge that we have delivered in Murray Bateman has, we've learnt some lessons, I think, across the board in relation to that. Not just the connecting pathway, but also just the cost and what the piece of infrastructure that we're delivering needs to look like. So we'll continue to work with council's engineers to get that, to refine that design so that we can do it in that within the budget that we've allocated to this, and hope that we might see in between now and as we move through this process, the other planning agreement that we've got in play for Sutton also evolve as well. So that's probably all I wanted to say. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them, but fairly self-explanatory, the report.
Councillors, do we have any questions for Ms Dempsey? Councillor Cameron.
It's interesting that you provided the bridge at Murray Bateman, did you? And you mentioned that you have learnt from that process, besides the issue with the path, etc. Is there anything specifically about the bridge that you've learnt to rectify or correct this new bridge that might be put in at Sutton?
So to start with, it's through a planning agreement.
Yeah.
So the bridge at Murray Bateman didn't have the robustness of VPA. It was the original approval approved a bridge somewhere upstream a little bit. It got washed away in the intervening period. So it didn't have a design. We hadn't agreed on a design. We hadn't agreed on a budget. We hadn't agreed on even the final location. And that became evident, I think, when we started to talk about, well, where's the path going to go? Because that became problematic. Where the original bridge was, probably also would have been a bit of an issue for the path, to be fair. But there's been a lot more thought that has gone into how this might, where we're locating this particular piece of infrastructure at this point.
But in the sense, is it going to be very similar to the one Murray Bateman, or is it totally different, or is the design up for grabs in a sense, like can be negotiated?
The design is fully, so we've designed a for-purpose bridge with some parameters around flooding and the span. Right. So this span is
longer?
A little bit longer. It's the current design has a 1 metre beam that sits below the bridge span which may have some, for example, we might have to go back to the drawing board on, because it may have some issues with debris and during a flood event, for example. So what we've done is looked at a bridge that we can deliver in this location. We're also we're looking at the deck. So the bridge deck at Murray Bateman is quite a coarse, and if you're in stilettos, you probably wouldn't brave the bridge after dark, particularly. But so things like that we've looked at.
And my reading is that the amount of money is much more for this bridge than the other one.
No, the amount of money is probably around the same. There was some cost. There were some cost issues with the other ones the other bridge that were unforeseen, right, that we have reined in on this. For example, things like the gal dipping of a bridge of this span costs almost as much as the bridge. And so do we need to actually gal dip a bridge that, in this sort of case? So those are the sort of design things we've already looked at, and we'll continue to talk with council and the engineers to get a finalise a design that is going to work here, that's going to deal with the flooding, withstand the flooding. This bridge in its current form will withstand a 1%, 100-year flood event. Whether that's a design parameter, we still need to.
There's still work to be done.
Councillor Cherry.
Well, Mayor, thank you. Hi, Liz. Obviously, this is something that I have a vested interest in because the discussion last year about it. So what I'd like to know is in this VPA, and noting that this isn't about the Murray Bateman, but you've mentioned it, and obviously Councillor Cameron's alluded to it, and specifically the cost. And I'll draw your attention to the figure of 245,000 as a cap. What concerns me is that it's never as simple as we believe it is on face value. So there is potential here for that figure to potentially go above that. What I'm seeking here is an assurance from you as a representative of the developer that there is commitment to deliver this infrastructure beyond that cap. I know that it is a VPA, voluntary being the operative word there, but it would be a very bad look to just say, we'll reach 245, that's where we're going to leave it.
I don't think that we would half build a bridge, but why we've put that in there is because it's unreasonable for 30 lots that we have an open checkbook in terms of what this, what this piece of infrastructure is going to look like. It's a pedestrian bridge to be able to link, get people safely from one side to the other, and then from there, the village itself. We've done a concept design, and we can build the bridge that we've in our concept for this amount of money. So having said that, if we get to a point and we've finalised working through that process and we've got to get on with this because we've got 12 months to deliver this piece of infrastructure. So we're not going to be sitting on our hands now. If we need to come back, so if council come to us and say, we actually need you to add in this, and this, and those things are non-negotiable, then and that's going to cost another $200,000, then we're going to say that might be a little bit unreasonable. We're really looking at what is a bridge that is fit for purpose in a reasonable budget. So we're committed to delivering it, but it is not an open, we don't want it in a position where it's a negotiation.
Yeah,
and I'm
okay,
sure
so I'm really glad you
will come
highlighted
back
that.
To
Because obviously
council
the
to
cap being 245, what you're telling us is that there is a level of reasonable negotiating space, noting that we're not carte blanche, we're not open checkbook, but noting that things may change. There is potentially...
So for example, we have to go through the process of the water, natural resources water regulator to get approval for the piles and the work on the, spanning the high bank. Whether there's the actual part of McLaughlin's Creek at this point is actually the flow path is quite narrow, but this site has been chosen because the distance between the high banks is the shortest, but there's absolutely opportunity to put piles within that high bank that reduce the span and therefore reduce the cost, but it would need a level of approval from the water regulator. They need to commit. They need to stop saying, we'll send us a design and we'll think about it. And I think that's the frustration with the path, for example. It's like, no, we know, we don't want to second guess. We want to know, because there is, if that's going to make the difference between $150,000, then why wouldn't we do that? We're still not in the flow path for anything other than I think it was like a 1 in 80 or year flood event. It's quite a narrow. So there are things like that that potentially could result in a cost blowout. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors?
Talking about the galvanising on the bridge, how are you
Yes.
going to make it more durable?
So we currently we have a design that has galvanising.
Yep.
So I'm just using that as an example of it's a really expensive process because this particular bridge in its design because of its span, you know, may need an escort to get it from where it's prefabricated to Wollongong, which is the only place in New South Wales that you can get a piece of infrastructure this size galvanated. So we will look at, obviously, something that is, maintenance is really important here because it is something that's going to be council's asset and you're going to be maintaining it for, we hope, like 100 years. So we want to be able to make sure that we're doing something in that is low maintenance. So, you know, maybe we're going galvanizing over trying to reduce the span, you know, that it's.
Thank you, Liz. We have a question from Councillor Flannery.
Thank you. I have two questions. Thank you for your presentation. And I look forward to a better process than the one that was for Murray Bateman. I'm interested in one question about the bridge and the surfacing of the bridge. People with having people that can use pedestrian crossings and bridges and all of those things where they have mobility issues is is a concern of mine. So will your bridge in some ways facilitate people that might be blind or vision impaired to be able to get across or to help them? I'm not asking for a whole lot of additional infrastructure, but from my understanding, the bridge at Murray Bateman, the grooves in the and the base could actually entrap a cane if you've got a ball on the end of your cane. And so I'm just wondering if you've used all ability, you know, if you've looked at the standards or the Australian standards for, you know, mobility impaired people. It just might mean something as simple as using slightly closer together grating on it.
We've definitely taken on board the feedback from Murray Bateman in relation to the bridge deck. The bridge that's been designed does meet Australian standard for a pedestrian bridge, but we can certainly, those issues around accessibility and mobility is presumably will be something that council's engineering staff will also raise. But thank you.
I have one more question. I'm interested in the paper on 6.2, the financial implications, that there has been two amounts, 5,250 per annum for maintenance of the trail surface and 26,000 per annum for the maintenance of the open space. How were these? Were you just asked that these were the amounts, or were you provided with? Did you provide a costing of what it might cost to look after these assets? I actually have one more follow-up question as well.
No, that was something that council have determined. The open space is being dedicated because it was zoned for that purpose. So that was.
Yeah, I just was interested in I was just interested in how that figure was arrived at, because we've been told, oh, you know, developers don't pay enough for the cost of the assets and things, and I thought maybe there was some metric behind it, but I'm not sure.
No, I don't know. You have to ask stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any further questions from here? Thank you, Liz. I'm very glad to have the discussion today. I think particularly about the bridge, it was very integral to a lot of us actually, you know, feeling comfortable to approve it, because we did not want pedestrians across that causeway. So I'm glad to hear of the commitment to construct it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6.3, the Murray Bateman pump track site determination. Speaking against the recommendation in the business paper, Ms. Annalise Caston, representing the Murray Bateman Community Association.
Hello, thank you. Annalisa Caston from the Murray Bateman Association. I'm the secretary, and I'm here saying that the Murray Bateman Community Association does not agree with the recommendation to build a pump track on the southern sand arena of the Murray Bateman recreation grounds. We urge council to honour the current strategic plan the grounds to avoid piecemeal facility cramming and urgently master plan the Hawthorn Greenfield site to deliver a new recreation space for Murrum Bateman. Council paper presents survey results that fail to deliver a clear mandate, and 54% of the respondents did not vote for the recreation grounds. Master plan will future-proof growth, unlock significant infrastructure grants and protect the rec grounds for vital events like the Murrum Bateman Field Days. The current strategic plan for the grounds has 28 priority items, but they are being ignored and broader public consultation is still required. Council resources should not be deflected away from delivering these priorities. The grounds see around 160,000 visitors annually. Adding a pump track introduces spatial and operational challenges that will severely impact the Murrum Bateman Field Days and other users. Significantly, the open space strategy explicitly states our town has a severe recreational space deficit. The solution is the Hawthorn Greenfield site, council-owned and already linked by shared pathways. The general sites shown in the pump track project plan presents an ideal long-term location for a recreation hub. A Murrum Bateman master plan is crucial for strategically planning our community's growth. We are closer than ever for this to happen. MCA requests strategic leadership to plan a new recreation space on the Hawthorn site, staged to enable a pump track, a Category 1 playground, sporting facilities, alongside development for future schools and other facilities. Councillors, MCA and other community members urge you to not support the recommendation of this paper. The Murrum Bateman community deserves the best, and a master plan along with structured stage opening of land for new recreation spaces will deliver community needs for our future.
Thank you, Ms. Castan. Do I have any questions, councillors?
Louise, how are you? Good. I was just wondering if, just asking how you were.
Question one.
How are you?
I'm very well. Weren't you in favour of the All Abilities Playground going down there?
The association was, yes. It was a different situation.
What's
with
changed?
that, but it's changed now.
What's changed?
It's a different thing. That was looking at wider, both a playground and a little pump track, and a big area for the racetrack, and also the CTPED, the police report rejected that site. So we were willing to try and get the All Abilities playground to go there, and when Christy McBain and Councillor Butler got the promise for the grant, Christy McBain was saying that was the best place for it at the time.
Wonderful. Well done getting the funding, Christy. Well, I think the public had a petition as well that had 300 and something signatures on it that said the Sandaroon was the best place as well.
And your question, councillor?
Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
I'm just pointing it out to Annalise.
I have read about it in this paper.
Good.
Any further questions, councillors? Thank you, Ms. Castan.
I had a question. Sorry, I had a question.
Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, councillor.
Annalise, thanks for your presentation. I guess one of my initial thoughts was, why would council want to put something more in the recreation area? And it kind of diminishes what they could offer for Hawthorn. Like, I totally agree with you that a master plan, like a sensible master plan, looking at where items are and seeing the possibilities of them. And I sort of think that as a group, something when it's presented might, sorry, I'll come to my question. Something when it's presented, do you want a playground here? You haven't been given the opportunities to look at some other areas. So my question to you is, with the Hawthorn development, do you think that all of these facilities, like that would be an attractor to go into Hawthorn rather than, and what else would Hawthorn offer, or what should Hawthorn look for if it's not a pump track and a playground or an all abilities playground?
It could be a wide range of facilities. I'll just let you know, I was on the playground committee and I did advise them that the MCA, we went for some grants for some other facilities. One was for a multi-sports court as well. We had council support to go for that grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. And we've also got quotes for a climbing wall and so on. So we had a bit of a vision, and we did bring a proposal to council about 2.5 years ago with what could possibly go into that space. And, starting off small, if it was a pump track, it could be that, or it could be sorry.
Okay.
That's right. And I also understand, but correct me if I'm wrong, that the sand arena, which has sometimes been described as not used, is actually quite well used, and it cost, I think the equestrian group's got a grant of about 150,000 for that sand arena. Is that correct?
No, that's it's a little bit different. The sand arena was mostly paid by the community association.
Oh, right. Okay.
From the money and profits from the Murray Bateman Field Days, and from memory, the quotes was around about $130,000, and so we built that, and then the equestrian groups, they got a grant for doing or redoing the cross country course that they had built theirs, in 2007, and then they got another grant to formally do it, to improve it, and so on.
So just if I paraphrase what you've just said, so I've got it correct, the community association, through volunteers' work and efforts, donated about 100,000 to make the sand arena to improve the facilities there. So no government funding, all community hard work. Correct. And the Murray Bateman, the group that you represent now, do not support the pump track in that area, because as much as anything, it's wasted all your time and efforts in building that sand arena.
Sorry, and it's also used by a number of independent users. It's not so much used by the clubs at the moment because they have specific events, but a lot of people come there, and just individuals or groups of people, they don't have to book it because they're just using a public facility, and they don't want exclusive use, whereas if they wanted it exclusively, they would have to book it then.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Thank you, Ms. Caston.
No, I have one more question.
I'm sorry, Councillor Flannery, but you've had at least 4 questions on this item, and we have a training session afterwards. So I suggest that you needed to ask your most important question first and then work backwards. We now need to move on to our other speakers.
Thank you, Annalise. That was really helpful.
All right. And I'm sure Ms. Caston will be available offline afterwards if you have any further follow-up questions, Councillor Flannery. Moving on to our next speaker against the same item, recommendation in the business paper, the Murray Bateman Pump Track Site Determination, Ms. Stephanie Helm.
Okay. Good afternoon, councillors and staff, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
I speak today as an individual long-term resident, someone who grew up in this town and who's now raising young children here who would benefit from more recreational facilities. So I support recreational infrastructure for young people, but it must be well planned because we are a small rural town with diverse needs across all ages and abilities. We should embrace this. Some people want nature-based spaces, some want bike or skate facilities, adventure playgrounds, others want informal courts for netball, basketball or soccer, others want fitness-style infrastructure. We have none of this currently. But with good planning, it is possible for us to do so. I've travelled much around regional New South Wales and have seen other regional towns do this brilliantly. In the absence of a strategic planning framework, such as a master plan, it's understandable that individuals and groups step forward to advocate for infrastructure. But without a shared plan, this creates competing priorities and a breakdown in constructive dialogue. This is not about being for or against a pump track. I'm concerned by the narrative suggesting otherwise and by the tension that Council's own process, the survey, and the false sense of urgency around this decision has created, where people feel that they must support this or risk being labelled against the kids. There are many ways that we can provide effective recreational infrastructure in a small town like Murrumbateman. We have examples from all over the country. We have our own open space strategy. We even have advice from the consultant who originally was engaged to design the playground, all that point towards creative solutions for meeting our diverse community's needs on a limited budget. This is not a new problem, but we aren't talking about the problem. We are allowing one interest group to dictate where significant funds and resources are deployed. And with this site location, it would be to the detriment of other groups. That's not how you solve the problem of limited recreational infrastructure in a town. It's how you create conflict. I'm also concerned that councillors are being asked to make a decision on this site location before you have all the information that you need. I've set this out in detail in my emailed submission. In summary, the project scope keeps shifting, which should raise real concerns about scope creep and long-term site suitability. There is no justification for the urgency. There is no confirmed funding, there is no grant deadline, there is no safety issue. Council must be satisfied that it can explain on the public record what has driven this pace when so many other long-standing priorities documented in Council's own strategic plans haven't received the same treatment. Enthusiasm to get on with it shouldn't justify a rushed decision that displaces existing users and creates uncertainty for every community group about their own facilities. We have so little recreational infrastructure. Removing an existing facility should be a last resort. Costs are also unclear. Comparable projects run upwards of $1 million and grant funding does not grow on trees. Supporting this project now signalises it as the priority, and it will absorb funding and community fundraising at the expense of everything else. Murrumbateman will have a butte pump track, but not much else. Just to quickly wrap up, I'm confused also about the inclusion of an earlier petition, which has been referenced, as it is irrelevant to site selection. It led to the formation of the working group, but it does not mean that this project overrides all other priorities within Murrumbateman. You haven't yet asked the community about that. Your role isn't to respond to the loudest voices, but to decide what's fair and in the community's long-term interest. The question isn't whether this is a good idea, it's whether it's the right decision at the right time and the right process. So I urge you to defer site selection and prioritise the Murrumbateman Master Plan. Please unite this community and don't divide it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helm. Do you have any further, any questions for Ms. Helm?
Yes.
Councillor Cherry.
No,
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Flannery, is it? Yes, Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was a really logical step through presentation, and it really made me wonder, why do you think this is being rushed through? Like, given that there's no funding, it could easily be put into Hawthorn, it is dividing the community. What would your take be of why this is being rushed through?
I mean, my answer would be because we don't have a master plan. We've asked for one for many, many years, and Murrumbateman doesn't have recreational infrastructure. So, of course, our community groups, of course, individuals, of course, our kids are saying, where are our things? And so in the absence of leadership from this council in doing that plan and getting us all together in a room where we can talk about our priorities and needs for the long-term future, you have individuals going, well, I'll just get on with it myself. But that's not how it works.
Okay, I think that's very good. And my one next question, because I'm just going to ask this one, then I'll finish, is I understand there's a house that backs onto it that would be 100% affected by this, and that the resident of that house or residents of that house who have lived there for a very, very long time are really quite opposed to this. And I'm just wondering if they've spoken to you about what some of their concerns are and why this is significantly different than just, say, having a sand arena behind your house, your home.
Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of them, but I do know the family, and they do have a very long history in Murrum Bateman and have lived on that site for generations, and they are a strong part of the history of our town. I understand that as the town has grown, they have been very accommodating with things that have grown up around them, and have obviously, been good about, events occurring on the rec grounds, but everything is quite manageable with the residents there. This sort of facility will be well used because it is going to be popular. Any kind of recreational facility for kids is going to be popular. And so it will likely impact them. And I am aware that they have not been consulted, but that would be a question for them.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any further questions, councillors? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Moving on to the same item, speaking for the recommendation in the business paper. Sorry, I've missed one. Two Stephanies caught me. Ms. Stephanie McCall, who is coming via Teams.
Occurring on the rec grounds, but everything is quite manageable with the residents there. This sort of facility will be
Hello,
Ms.
McCall, if I could ask you to
and so
just let me know if you can hear me. I believe you may be playing back or it's on slight delay.
All I'm hearing is the previous is
yeah. Yes. So Ms. McCall, if you could just mute the YouTube link. Perfect.
Yep.
Terrific. You have 3 minutes, Ms. McCall. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, am I starting? Hold on.
When you're ready.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I had the YouTube going on in the background. Thank you. Shall I start?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. McCall.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, councillors and senior staff for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to ask, have council been consistent and accountable to the whole community by highlighting all the relevant details before an existing public facility is effectively committed to replacement? Regarding the survey, the community identified Hawthorn as the preferred site. The recommendation is for the Sand Arena, though, because Hawthorn has no master plan. If Hawthorn wasn't ready for development, why was it presented to the community as a genuine option? And why, since the 22 playground consultation has no master plan, being progressed if council knew again that it was to be offered as a potential recreation site? The survey didn't state that choosing the rec ground site meant removing the arena, a public facility still very much in use. Council's own strategic plan says any future development of the Sand Arena requires broader community consultation, and there is no evidence that this has happened. In March, I raised concerns with council. I also asked for a town hall meeting, and then also with staff about the survey perceived constraints. So why does it feel again that the equestrian community is being pitted into the ring? To someone who doesn't ride, an arena can look like an empty paddock. It's a purpose-built infrastructure, though. It provides an area for children and independent local riders, as well as visitors to the Shire, and is part of a connected equestrian precinct as the start of the cross-country warm-up area. No one looks at an empty football oval or tennis courts and calls that spare land, so why with the Sand Arena? I'd also ask council to recognise the equestrian community's importance to Murrum Bateman and the Shire, and long-standing part of the town's identity, economy and social fabric. The Barton Highway was also flagged as a major constraint in the 25 over the playground, And now staff recommend the same site for the pump track intended for users from toddlers, I believe, to teenagers. The report relies on the crime prevention through design. This, though, is not a road safety assessment. And so I would genuinely ask, what has changed? Has council done a road safety assessment? We were told nothing of this scale would happen again without a master plan, and instead council have got a community left to fight in its own corners. Councillors, may I ask, what is the urgency for this interest group when existing high action points on the current rec round strategic plan for existing user groups remains unaddressed? Therefore, before making any decisions, can council say that every impact has been fully considered, that the broader community has been completed, and transparent information and consultation? And I would ask, please defer this determination and wait for the master plan so that a balanced competing needs and just avoid creating conflicts, which is happening, and we all know that it's happening, so I will not be silent on that. Or basically, please do so before facilities are removed without fully considering the long-term consequences. I would also like to say that I am not against the pump track. I have teenagers. It would be great. But I also do not believe that there has been full, broad consultation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms McCall. Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms McCall. Moving on, the same item, speaking for the recommendation in the business paper, Ms Brioni Windsor.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of locating the pump track at the Southern Stand Arena. When we talk about community infrastructure, we're not simply discussing concrete and asphalt. We're talking about creating opportunities, building connections and investing in the future of our young people. On the 28th of March this year, the Murrum-Bateman Pump Track Club held its first event called the Murrum-Bateman Bikeathon in conjunction with the twice monthly village market. More than 50 riders participated and we were supported by parents, volunteers and local businesses. The atmosphere demonstrated just how much enthusiasm already exists for cycling and active recreation in our town, and I thank Councillors Butler and Cherry for attending and their support. Importantly, the event wasn't just about bikes, it was also about listening to our community and connecting with our community. I'd like to share the story of a young child named Luca who helped make it possible. So passionate was he about our bikeathon that he stood before his entire school to encourage students to take part. His initiative and enthusiasm earned recognition from his teachers and his leadership and community spirit. And that is the snowball effect of projects like this. One child becomes inspired, that inspiration spreads to classmates, families, schools and volunteers. And before long, a simple idea becomes a stronger, healthier and more connected community. And I would just like to say as well that Luca is here today. He's been an amazing support for us. We held an and so also at the Bikeathon event, we held an interactive information stall at the market and invited attendees to vote for their preferred location for the pump track. And the result was clear. 47 out of 51 people selected the Southern Stand Arena as their first site preference, making it the standout choice. This wasn't a theoretical survey, it was feedback from the very families and young people who will use this facility. We have also have an ongoing petition for the Sand Arena and have so far gathered 381 signatures. A pump track is in a regional community like Murrum-Bateman is much more than a recreational asset. It provides children and teenagers with an inclusive place to ride, builds confidence, skill development, stays active and connect with friends. Encourages healthy lifestyles while giving our young people somewhere they genuinely want to spend time. And for regional towns, facilities like this are incredibly important. They provide opportunities that many families would otherwise need to travel elsewhere to access, and they demonstrate that we value our children and investing in their future. And there's also a strong economic benefit, which is increasing. Pump tracks have become destinations in their own right, attracting visitors from surrounding regions. These visitors support our cafes, wineries, shops, local businesses, and create additional economic activity while strengthening Murrum Bateman's reputation as a family-friendly destination. You're not simply deciding on a location, you're deciding whether to invest in the health of our children, the strength of our community, and the future prosperity of our town. And I respectfully ask you to support the Southern Sand Arena as the home of the Murrum Bateman's future pump track. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Windsor. Do I have any questions, councillors?
I do. Thank you, Ms Windsor.
Councillor Butler.
At the most recent Murrum Bateman Recreation Grounds committee meeting, which was a part of the stakeholder engagement, everyone that was there heard from council staff that Hawthorn could potentially be as far as 10 years away in terms of all of the extensive planning that would need to go into it. What do you think that would do to the community to have to wait another 10 years? We've had this pump track budgeted into previous budgets in 2017-18, so it's been an identified project for a long time now. What do you think would happen if the community was told to wait another 10 years potentially?
I think it would be so detrimental to the town. The support from businesses, from residents, from everyone that is wanting this pump track, have to wait to have that decision from council, to have to wait for a possible location at Hawthorn, a greenfield site, the cost of building it down there when there's no infrastructure would just completely detrimental. And I would ask all councillors to really consider that the Sand Arena is the right location.
Councillor Flannery.
If you're a part of a group that raised money for it and still used the Sand Arena as a sand arena, would you feel that your efforts had gone to waste because another group comes in and wants something new in that area? Like, surely, as a community group, you can respect that other groups who have already invested money in there should, would be very disappointed that their use is dismissed.
Thanks for the question, Fleur. As a volunteer of at least 18 years in Murrum Bateman, who has helped raise that money, and hasn't had it put into a project or a community group that I've been involved in, I don't quite understand your sentiments. If the money has come from the MCA, if that's what you're saying.
It's not my sentiments. My question to you was, if you're a part of a group that raised money for that infrastructure and you're a user of that infrastructure, would you not feel disappointed that a group comes in without any funding? I'm just curious that Councillor Butler said this has been budgeted for when I've not seen a budget item. It says in the paper that it's not, there's no money in the budget. But there's no money in the budget. I think we need to be clear about that.
$30,000.
And that will not build a pump track.
No, it won't.
But it does say in the paper that it's not budgeted for. So I just want to be clear that I cannot see a budget in our line item in the budget for it. So my question is, would you not be disappointed that that your efforts and your sand arena that you use might potentially be used by another group?
Windsor, you don't have to answer that. We're not in a court of law and you're not on trial at the moment, so you can just decline to answer that question.
Oh, I'm not
to answer it a different way.
I just said, would you feel disappointed? Would you feel disappointed? Like I feel disappointed.
Councillor Flannery, we have the question. We have the question, and we'll give the opportunity for Ms. Windsor to respond in a manner she sees fit.
So, as a previous member of the MCA and as a volunteer across Murrum Bateman for over 18 years, yes, I would be disappointed. And I am disappointed that there isn't any funding forthcoming or support forthcoming from the MCA. So yes, I am. I'm also aware that the sand arenas are available from council for a new opportunity.
Is
Sand Arena, sorry, the Southern Sand Arena.
It's in the strategic plan.
A strategic plan that you would know about, Flo.
I didn't know that we had a master plan. I wasn't aware of it because a few people have said we don't have one.
Murrum Bateman Recreation Ground strategic plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Caesar, if I could just ask for a little bit of history, because while the push for a pump track and the word pump track is relatively new within the last 5 or 10 years, previous to that, it's my understanding that the Murrum Bateman community wanted and was lobbying hard for a BMX track at the rec ground. So this has a long history. A gentleman called Peter McGinley was lobbying council back in 2013. There was a petition in 2013 as well. So it's my understanding it's been around for a while.
It has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Even going back further than that, over 20 years. Yeah.
If I could just extend through you to young Luca, I want to congratulate him on his advocacy and for his bravery in getting up in front of his classmates to advocate for what he's passionate about. Good on you, mate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, we'll now move to Mr. Matt Baker on Teams speaking for this item. We'll just move on to Mr. Tom Patton while we see if we can get Mr. Baker back. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm speaking on behalf of the club president of the Murrum Bateman Pump Track, Mr. Darren. He's written for something for me to read out, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions from then on. On behalf of the Murrum Bateman Pump Track, I write to you formally to express our strong support for the Southern Sand Arena as the preferred location for the establishment of the community pump track. We sincerely thank the Yass Valley Council for the constructive steps it's taken to progress this project and for its continued engagement with the community. A BMX facility in Murrum Bateman has been sought after by the community for more than a decade, as early as 2013. And then the chair of the council led Section 355 Murrum Bateman Rec Grounds Committee identified a BMX track comprising soil mounds to start the finish in the rec grounds. The council has recognised this need, allocating $35,000 in its delivery program 2017 to 21 and operational plans for 2017 to 18 for the establishment of the BMX track in Murrum Bateman. Unfortunately, those funds were never expended. Despite this, the community has remained consistent, reflecting the demand for a purpose-built facility. We've had strong community support and has continued to grow and evolve towards the modern use of a track that caters for riders of all ages and abilities. In May 2025, a petition containing 344 signatures was formally submitted to the council requesting that the Southern Sand Arena be repurposed. The community has long understood that the development of the Northern Sand Arena and the broader equestrian precinct was intended to consolidate horse-related activities within a dedicated area, improving both safety and functionality while allowing others in the rec grounds to evolve and meet broader community needs. With the Northern Equestrian Precinct now complete, we believe the Southern Sand Arena has fulfilled its original purpose and should now be repurposed to provide an important recreational facility for the wider community. This position is consistent with the Recreation Grounds Strategic Plans 2025, which identifies redevelopment of the Southern Sand Arena, subject to community consultation and council endorsement as a medium priority action. We acknowledge and appreciate the council's commitment to progressing this project, including establishing the focus group, preparing the pump track project plan in 2025, allocating $30,000 in the 25 to 26 budget to undertake the project scope. Importantly, the pump track focus group identifies the Southern Sand Arena as the preferred site in May 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Do we have any questions for Mr. Patton? Thank you so much for your presentation, and I did appreciate how you clarified the shift of the equestrian, like it was strategic to switch it. Yeah, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker, Mr. Matt Baker, speaking for the recommendation in the business paper, is now available on Teams for us. Matt, can you hear us?
I got you now. Yes. Hello.
We can hear you loud and clear. Next 3 minutes is all yours.
All right. So I haven't been able to follow. I've been driving a little bit, but basically, you know why I'm here. I'm to talk in favour of the pump track going at the Southern Sand Arena on the Murrum Bateman Rec Grounds. I don't see where the problem is. The benefits for the community. I've spoken to local businesses. I've spoken to many local residences. So many people that aren't involved in horses lack recreation for their kids. We have kids in Murrum Bateman digging up potholes and contour banks in Middle Street and making their own jumps. I went for a drive down there the other day and I had a look what they're doing. Very smart of these kids, but you know, it's a bit of a hazard. People could fall in them, but they've got nowhere else to ride. I think it's a no-brainer. Council have been telling me for over 20 years, as you all know, I've been pushing this barrow this long, that we've got nowhere to put it, Matt. I'm sorry, but, well, we now do, you know. But look back through the council records, the Sand Arena was to be repurposed for a recreational facility for Murrum Bateman. Well, I've got one. I've got a recreational facility that is going to benefit the community, our wineries, our restaurants, the pubs, the servo. Everybody will benefit from this recreation facility. Councillor Flannery, last time I was at YAS doing a presentation, I made the comment that the people that will come to Murrum Bateman just to ride this pump track, and you said, well, what proof have you got? The proof is, I think we have committee members, they do exactly the same thing. I've spoken to numerous people. They pack their caravan, they put the kids in the car, the bike's on the back of the caravan, and they travel Australia, and their sole purpose is to ride pump tracks. They go on riding holidays, you know, like horse people do. They travel all over the countryside, spending money in local communities, and that's what I want to do. We can have a competition style track in Murrum Bateman that will attract a huge amount of tourism for the town and for Yass Valley in general. The wineries and everybody, they'll all benefit. There's been a bit of a scare campaign about, you know, we're not costed, we're not funded, we're not. It's not a proper project. Is a pamphlet that went around the village. We have a committee set up. We have a president, secretary, treasurer. We have a committee. We have a bank account. We have an ABN. We're a registered, I think, don't quote me, a registered charity. We've got the feet on the ground and we've got a group of people willing to push this. I haven't asked council for any money yet. Somebody says, oh, but council can't afford it. Have I ever asked council for money? No, I haven't. We're going to, and I believe, according to our president, who owns a bike shop in town, Darren Simmons, many of you would know, Darren said this will be the first time in Australia that this has been done, where a private group, like a not-for-profit group, like the Murrum Bateman Pump Track Association, we are going to be the first ones to build our own track. How are we going to build it? I've got people in the community ready to donate money. We'll have fundraising, and yes, we'll apply for grants like every other not-for-profit organisation is. I was approached last.
Sorry, Matt. Sorry, Matt. We've reached the end of our 3 minutes.
All right.
But you've done
cool.
You've done well to fit what you have in there. Councillors, do we have any further questions? Questions for Mr. Baker? All right. Thank you, Matt, for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good night, everybody. Ta.
Councillors and members of the gallery, that now concludes our presentations for public forum speakers, and I thank you for your attendance and your contribution. Thank you so much.
I haven't been doing online shopping or talking to you or anything. It's been sorry, we may still be.
You ready?
If you need, thanks for that. Thanks for sending that through.
Oh, yeah.
Jasmine? Jasmine, we're live.
Thank you. All right, so councillors, and for anyone watching at home, we're now about to have a presentation from the National Transport Research Organisation, and that's from Mr. Tyrone Toole, who'll be presenting to us on the review of Yass Valley roads.
Thank you. Is it over to me?
Yes, please, Tyrone.
Yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here representing the National Transport Research Organisation. Some of you may know us as the Australian Road Research Board, or ARRB, from the past, but we're essentially the same organisation. I'm also supported tonight by Brendan Williams from my team as well, senior engineer, and we'll be sharing the presentation. Firstly, might I say that it's a pleasure to do this kind of work. It helps to keep us grounded, to understand what's really happening on the ground. So in the work we do in general guidance around the country, etc., we draw on such work like this, and it's very valuable. Also say there's a lot of good work going on in council by the team. There's challenges. I think it's very important for an opportunity like this, and I'm very proud to have the opportunity that the whole team is sharing it, the council and the community. In reality, we can only deal with standards, choices, etc., with the resources we have, or how we can grow them, as well as being as efficient and productive as possible. And so it's great to be doing this. As briefed here, an independent review called for by the council, awarded to us, validate benchmark practices, operations, etc. The prioritisation processes that are used, decision-making processes across construction and maintenance, and some basic things like having the right plant and the practices, the labour, etc., skilled operators and supervisors to undertake work, and all the other aspects about pulling in private sector resources where appropriate, and the different specifications that are used in design, construction and maintenance. Next slide, please. So one of the key things in these opportunities is actually to understand the challenges. Us as advisors coming in, we need to understand your challenges that you've been working with, living with, trying to improve for not just today, but for several years, and obviously going into the future. What the emphasis given to us in responding to the brief, biggest challenges perhaps in unsealed roads, but as we'll see, sealed roads also pose a challenge. A substantial issue of are the budget limits supportive of the standards, etc., that you're aiming to deliver? Are the dollars attributed to the right hierarchy, for example? And several other major challenges. What the community has been saying is particularly important. We need to be listening to this, responding to it. And so it's that balance between communities and levels of service, technical, and the constraints on budget, etc., that you work within. And there's obviously feedback, reporting being done on where the community sees the challenges, and again taking that into account. As you see here, in sealed roads, perhaps a slightly greater level of satisfaction with them from the community than unsealed roads. if you can just press and we'll look at the transition, please. So one of the other aspects is the different sources of data, and do they match? On the bottom of the pie chart there's a lot of red on unsealed roads, and perhaps a big recognition, and also from community feedback, and it can happen even when we're visiting on the condition of unsealed roads. So we'll develop that a bit further. On sealed roads, there might be some mismatch between the community perception and the data that's being reported. Now, that can be simply the level of standards that perhaps the conditions have been judged against, or it could be some other detail in terms of the responsiveness to potholes, etc., that perhaps isn't being captured fully with the more general reporting charts, etc., showed here, but will no doubt need to be chased down and understood and responded to. Next slide, please. So coming from our end, what we need to know, understand the purpose, the intent in our words, but where we're coming from, and I think this is what's being expected, is to make assessments. What's fit for purpose is very important, and we'll dive into that on several of the cases that we portray in this presentation, but also what's achievable with current resources, what might happen in future, the road characteristics, the road use, heavy vehicles, light vehicles, amenity, people wishing to travel into the country perhaps more than they did in the past, and some of the other factors that may be challenges and constraints, natural resource factors, the availability of materials, etc. And so a key is what can be identified as main contributors, improvements, perhaps as some new agreements needed. What should the standards appropriately be and planned to be delivered within the resources available, or should additional resources be justified and come available in future? And checking on the outcomes. Are the resources targeting the outcomes that are sought? And so right in the middle of this chart, I put things like safety, reliable access, getting places, safe and reliably is important, comfort and speed, and retained value. It's a massive asset, over $300 million of our asset value, and the environment. And it's always a challenge to balance things. And the other point behind this slide is actual structure follows that adopted by the State Attorney General, Auditor General rather, when they were reviewing transport for New South Wales. I adapted it slightly for other applications, but always asking the question, what's your destination? What conditions should your roads be in for the different hierarchies, etc., different uses, and going around that cycle about what's the gap and how to close the gap. And so that it's that we're addressing. Next slide, please. So how did we tackle it? Pre-visit, being briefed by your CEO, by the senior staff, and an extensive suite of documents and data that were available to be reviewed. So that's a good thing. If you've got written plans, if you've got good analysis, good data that we can re-examine as well, then that's a good starting point. It's best to know where you are in the first place. If you've got written down asset management policies that can be reviewed, the emphasis will be in there, but there may be some suggestions to, let's say, improve them and understand them. And behind some of these slides, there's also a lot of data. What was interesting working with the operations team, for instance, is they're looking hard at the productivity, at the factors affecting productivity, etc., within the whole business. And that realization and how to do that better is a step forward, clearly. So we followed up our initial pre-visit activity with in-depth briefings on site for a week with the CEO, the directors, and out in the field with the team. So visiting all road types, sealed, unsealed, really quite low volume access tracks as well. Debriefing and an overview of our findings and observations, and then standing back, analysing a bit further reporting, and then this presentation. Next slide, please. So again, the roads visited, just capturing that whole on the ground condition, and you'll recognise many of the names here, but visited quite a lot of sites over several days, and as I mentioned, from regional roads, higher speed regional roads, sealed roads, down to the most basic tracks out into close to areas like Wee Jasper and that rolls off my tongue, as you can hear, and other routes like Butchers Lane, etc. So covering that gave us a good idea of how the network works, the performances, witnessing some of the operations as well. The rain was out there as well, and often it's a good thing to see how roads are working in the rain, drainage being one of them. So getting that picture, we can then apply our experience in offering some suggestions and assessments in this task. Next slide, please. So touching on challenges, the biggest thing that steps out straight away from the assessments that have been made in various reports, including by independent advisors that have preceded us, is the gross mismatch or balance between the need and the budget. And I usually emphasize things like, if it's within the noise, if it's plus or minus 5, 10%, plus or minus 20%, it's one thing. But if it's out by a factor of 2, judged by various parties who have the capability to make those judgments, then it's significant. It also means that you might have a legacy network which applying is good at an effort at the moment with maintenance practices. I won't call it a losing battle, but it's tough. So the need for significant renewal and maintenance cannot be overemphasized. I'm usually a glass half full and more person, and for me to be saying that, that's pretty important in my view. Entirely reliant on grant funding for what's called capital expenditure. So that might be the resurfacing of roads, the rehabilitation of roads, bringing them back into service, whether they're sealed or unsealed, is very important to appreciate. If it's not being paid out of local funds, then you're dependent on grants, etc. That itself is a challenge. On unsealed roads, one of the findings that you're managing your current budget, you're probably doing about 50% what's really needed for the level of traffic condition, etc., on that part of the network, grading frequencies, etc. That will be a challenge. Fiscal constraints imply capital treatments have to last a heck of a lot longer. So I usually use the comparison like the weather board, we have to deal with it pretty much on time and the like. But if we're having to push out maintenance and renewal to almost double on a reasonable life, that is a big challenge. If it's been continuing like that for 5, 10, 15 years, etc., then it's quite a hole to climb out of. And there's some examples shown here. Next slide, please. Against that also is a growth, population growth, traffic growth, etc., affects different parts of the network, and prices. Escalating prices, inflation, as we've all experienced. Unsealed roads, using the available data, have grown by almost 80% traffic growth in the past 10 years. That's significant. The inputs to achieve a level of service when you almost double traffic in 10 years is not small. It needs to increase. Sealed roads perhaps lower traffic growth, but growth nevertheless. Population, historically low to moderate, but we always need to consider potential developments in the area. So all of these put pressure on the dollar. Price escalation greater than 5% per annum when I analyse the Bureau of Statistics data. In 10 years in your forward plans, and you've got forward plans, a 60% increase compound growth. The purchasing ability of that will drop 30 to 40% compared to today's prices. On the other hand, perhaps the IPART escalation rates of about 3% are not close to the challenges you're probably facing in growth and price escalation. So that really means we have to perform, to the greatest levels with existing resources, but in the end, there needs to be a strong justification and fight for appropriate resources. Next slide, please. So I'll touch on observations, etc., on unsealed roads. And I've highlighted a few here. I'll start off with the unsealed materials. We know ourselves from all of our experience in the country, etc., you've got a good road building material on the surface, not clay, etc., not sticky mud that constrains your access and leads to pothole formation rapidly and things like that. Then if you get the materials right, like baking a cake or anything else, it lasts and it tastes good. The experience is good. Drainage maintenance, and we always talk about the 3 R's in education. You talk to any engineer and it's water, water and water when it comes to roads and unsealed roads in particular, even more so. The grading type, those techniques, do you actually cut, reshape, mix and compact and get a good shape to a road to make it last, or is it tinkered with? What we've seen is good practices in a rather difficult position, but we've seen very good advances happening in terms of improved material selection by the team, drainage maintenance, trying to ensure the right maintenance is done, it's ahead of the grading gangs, etc. This all sounds technical, but that's how things last. And in terms of grading types and things like that, getting the shape back into the road and making it work for the community and for the road to survive. There are, of course, other challenges like equipment availability. Is it too old? Is it simply being worked too hard? Is it sufficient? Does it need replaced? And again, we'll make some comments on that. But again, it all supports, if in fact the right numbers and types and that are available pretty much constantly with servicing, etc., and replacement at times, of course you would get better performance. There's several other aspects. All-weather access policy. When you're challenged with budgets, standards, target standards can't always be achieved, or should, and perhaps need to be reset. Some of those standards might be perhaps the strategy with certain parts of the network where there's low populations or low households to serve, etc., like that, or farms to serve, is make it more of a basic access strategy for reliable transport as opposed to smooth comfort and speed. When to sail, to take an unsealed road and make it a sealed road, there's economic criteria that can justify that, but is it affordable? So in an ideal world, it may be optimum to intervene at some level of traffic per day, but in a fiscally constrained circumstances, it won't be. And now often I say the upfront costs of such activities such as sailing, which is loved by everybody on the one hand, will not be anywhere close to the bang for the buck that would be achieved from maintenance and renewal. And it's in that space that I'd be saying, again, just watching the pressures on such. It may be a candidate, but don't put it to the top if the network, including unsealed roads, suffer because it consumes big capital. Next slide, please. So there's a few slides here, but what I'll say about them, I'll go through them fairly quick. We have a Goldilocks technically that we aim for. And again, I make the adage of comparing with a cake. You get the right mix and you get the result. On the right-hand side, a good matrix of a material, firm, lasts under traffic, etc. But it's a good balance of material. It might not be on that center at the top there, that is mudstone. If you steep it in a pail of in a bucket of water, it will break down into mud. And quite a number of your roads around the council area are of that type of material. It will lose shape, and it will form potholes more in the wet, and again, it will be a challenge to road users and the productive side of industry that uses unsealed roads, for example, as well. But your team are working on this with solutions at the moment that I have confidence in, if you stick the course, will help in the long run. Next slide, please. Drainage, there's a whole range of things we see. And again, here, ensuring the water gets off the road, restoring the shape. One of the legacy things that we're seeing is getting close to bathtub shapes instead of a good crown that sheds water that's built up to give us a chance to perform and last. There's also some simple measures, what I call water bars, or you might think of them like speed humps on unsealed roads. It can help divert water off the surface and reduce erosion. But there's a whole range of different things that can be done in that area, and many people would say that should always be a big focus. My advice is you spend 5%, 10% of your budget in drainage, and you're going to be saving a lot. Next slide, please. And again, on the techniques, if we see that point on the right, you've got riding comfort getting worse, going upwards, getting rougher and rougher. The green shows a treatment being done, and it drops down as though it's as good as new. On the left, if you press the forward button once more. If you tickle it, it comes back to being bad very quickly. So your teams have been avoiding that, and they've been working in the green as best they can. The challenge, I fear, is because they've got a road that's been misshapen and dilapidated for some years, bringing it back to that full crown shape without building it up again, what we call resheeting, etc., is a challenge, but they are doing well in the circumstances. Next slide, please. This is really, again, around equipment availability and utilization. There's many factors: number of units, availability, out for servicing, staff availability, weather, number of operating by days, and the technique, etc., and the output that can be achieved. So again, we've been understanding that if you were aiming for the recommended target level of service on your network, you need to be doing about 800 kilometers a year. At the moment, you're doing roughly 400 or so kilometers. So that challenge is something that needs different solutions, revised targets. If you were continuing with a certain budget constraint, adjust your targets. It's the best you can do with the available funds. Increase availability, perhaps through hired and plant included, increased numbers of working units, purchase of new equipment, or as has been happening, some major refurbishment of the equipment so that again it can go into higher use again. Next slide, please. So again, when we then come back on the all-weather access and minimum maintenance policy, with the lower order roads, it really is a challenge to be able to maintain them, or even perhaps even pointless from an economic point of view, to a smooth standard, when really the function is to provide reliable access, not high speed, not comfort. And if there's a low number of the public, the community in certain areas, then the standards will need to be adjusted accordingly. So we've got suggestions in the area of all-weather access, as opposed to trying to re-gravel it and make it more like a heavier traffic unsealed roads. Do it to an appropriate standard. A critical thing is water crossings. If you need to get from A to B, you need to traverse water crossings safely and reliably. They might be, even in some times, as we know, you might be challenged for a few days a year with flood levels, etc. That is the norm at the lowest volume end of the spectrum. But the other thing is to concentrate your resources where it's important. If you can't get traction up a hill, and that's part of the overall route, gravel it. But don't gravel the whole road. It's just too expensive and unaffordable. What we did when we were out there, that mud photograph on the right, I picked up a big rock. I dropped it, smashed it, put it in a puddle of water, and it turned into the clay that it really was based on. So picking that where you might do a minimum maintenance policy, or weather access is I think important in your best using resources. Next slide, please. And really this one is only to emphasize the point, and I'll just let you take it away. There's one more transition. Thank you. And it's this balance from the highest order roads and levels of traffic down to the most basic, where you can get through and you've got ground conditions with shape and water's not reducing the access, reliability, etc., then work to those standards. And what I find in this case, I use the graph on the right. You'll get your biggest bang for your buck or marginal productivity spending perhaps addressing 5% of the road in critical locations and the road will work. When we start spending on keeping things smooth and that, it costs money. And you can only afford that when you've got high usage. So getting that balance, I think, is extremely important. Next slide, please. When to seal. Again, we have not just rules of thumb. We've developed them over the years. It's not the first time we've done these studies. We do them again and again and again and publish guidance in this. But there's break-even volumes for where you would seal as almost a no-brainer if you have the resources. There's other cases, 100 to 250 vehicles a day, where it's questionable. Below that, it's challenging. So understanding the level of cost will vary it. Whether it's a high cost improvement that needs to be done with, say, many water crossings and other things as well, then that will make the break-even point higher, simply more costly. The other aspect to understand or appreciate, I'd say, is prioritization. There will be many demands on resources. Putting in big capital on to seal a road is big capital. Something else gets lost. The benefit cost ratio will always be, to some extent, marginal. It'll be low-ish. Whereas maintaining, as Granny would say, the stitching time on your existing network, and that will give you a high rate of return. So that balance, to me, should always be there, and I'd be advising the council to take that into consideration. Yes, when to seal is good. People like sealed roads, but it can also be, it's a big burden and it reduces resources for other roads in the first place. It's not that they're good candidates, it's just they're competing for scarce resources. So I'm going to hand over now to Brendan, who will say a few words on sealed roads and then summarise on the findings that we've made through this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Mr. Toole.
All right, we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so obviously there was quite a bit of focus on the unsealed network, but there were a couple of sites of interest with the sealed road network too, and obviously one of them right outside of Yass, on the Yass Valley is the extensive flushing. Now, as we can see with the images on the screen there, and I'm sure living there, you're well aware that, yeah, it's not a new issue, and funnily enough, it looks like there was a reseal done around 2020, and yeah, the issue wasn't solved during that. So yeah, it is a long-term problem. Next slide. So how do we treat it? Well, first off, there is flushing is in excess of binder at the surface. It can form for a number of reasons, but yeah, I won't go into them because yeah, seal roads can be a bit finicky that way. But yeah, ultimately the treatments for flushing, well, first off, gritting is a short-term solution, particularly when it's during heat waves and that flushing's actually bleeding, and yeah, so that bitumen's bleeding, almost becoming a liquid during heat waves. Otherwise, there's longer-term solutions. However, these are such as high-pressure water retexturing or applying a pre-spray, which again, it's trying to get that binder balance right. But yeah, most of those will usually be addressed when you're in there doing a reseal. So yeah, long-term solutions to try and get that balance of aggregate and binder right. Next slide. Again, another observation was we did see sections of poor guardrail. we do note that the one on Wagilla Road, yeah, the team were investigating designs to do the replacement of that. So yeah, we do recognise that work. But yeah, ultimately these barriers, be it the ones on Wee Jasper Road or Wagilla Road, the current setup, they're going to offer little assistance if the motorist leaves the travel lane and has to rely on them. And I guess one of the emphasis with this, I know there's been a lot of focus on asset preservation, particularly with what Tyler was going through for the unsealed roads, but we've got to remember that, yeah, there is a high level that needs to be achieved with making sure that we address the safety risks on our road network. And treatments like guardrails can be more cost effective in doing this as opposed to other treatments such as rehabilitations of the road. Next slide. Yes, that was it for sealed roads. Now, just to sum up everything we've talked about. So as far as our brief, again, we've got the first task there talking about Council's prioritisation process. So yes, we recognise Council is holding a large suite of information and the Council staff are doing the best that they can to try and analyse and, yeah, again, do asset preservation. Roads, we can see that they're well categorised. However, we also know that the targets that are placed on the road network, particularly the unsealed roads, are unachievable. And also, additionally, we can see that the community sees the network as unsatisfactory. And as I just addressed on, we can also see that there's significant road safety risks, and yes, the staff are moving more towards a proactive risk-based approach, and that's recommended for adoption. With regards to the decision-making process for both construction and maintenance activities, we can see that due to a lack of funding, the periodic and capital works are being delayed, and that means that, yeah, we've got assets which are having to have longer and longer lives, to the point that they're getting into the extension life where there's increased risk of rapid deterioration. And the main things which we see from rapid deterioration are either lowering the level of service or increased costs to try and meet those that level of service. With regards to the unsealed network, we can see that there is a rapid deterioration, primarily due to the infrequent resheeting and also as Ty touched on, the increasing traffic loads on the network. And yeah, all those challenges. With regards to lower order unsealed roads, we did see evidence of disproportionate level of funding being put onto some of those roads, and yeah, we recommend that alternative strategies such as an all-weather access policy be adopted. Next slide. And for the task of reviewing plant availability and practices, yeah, the data does suggest that the need for a network-wide heavy grading, and that's what's being performed, and then also an expansion in the number of work units and drainage resources to meet the level of service. And the main need for the sealed road node network is to the increased level of resurfacing. So again, getting that capital expenditure. With regards to the decision-making process for using in-house or external resources, we do recommend that, we did note that, there didn't seem to be much a wide use of dry hire. There didn't seem to be a dry hire panel tenor active, and we recommend it as it's a good way to supplement when we've got plant which is undergoing maintenance or downtime, it does allow us to still use the in-house crews and continue our work. Additionally, if budgets become available, and a permanent work crew is not available at short notice, external resources should be sought, and they can supplement uses on an ad hoc basis. So as required, particularly if demand necessitates it. With regards to assessing the current suite of specifications used by the council, NTRO observed that, the available gravel material sources in many cases is not fit for purpose, and in support for council's efforts to specify better materials for new sources, and we could see that with the recent resheets which had been performed. And as Ty touched on recently, that we have also provided guidance with the method of when to seal an unsealed road, and it can be applied. And essentially, you're doing a business case of whether the benefits of sealing are justified for the upfront capital cost. We have also provided more guidance in further documentation about other treatment alternatives which council can explore, such as recycled materials or various seal types. And again, the focus is fit for purpose treatments for the particular road that you're assessing. And I believe that's the last slide. Yep.
Mr. Williams, just based on your last comments about the materials,
yes.
Am I here? Is what I'm hearing is any efforts to win material from the sides is a fruitless exercise everywhere in Yass Valley, or are there certain locations where you would say definitely try and win materials from the side to at least put something on the roads?
I'm happy for you to touch on that first, Ty.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. Look, we need to be careful about fetching materials, let's say, from the side drain. If you've already got a very low cross section, in many cases, fetching materials from the edge, shoulder, and the side drain will probably contaminate badly that material that is residual there in the first place. So that's a significant risk. And where you've got some, let's say, reasonable, even if it's marginal material on the existing surface, it could simply become a lot worse. So to me, it needs to be done with care. Possibly in a few places, we did see some more rocky and gravelly areas along some of the tracks, but even those are rather challenging.
I guess I'll follow on from that is the material that's used, it needs to be fit for purpose for the road. So there's obviously going to be more opportunity to access your local poorer quality materials if it's a low traffic road. But if we're talking the category 1 roads, obviously, with the significant amount of traffic on it, it's going to need to be a good quality, likely quarried material.
And I think what the mayor's talking about there is the old borrow pits on the side of the roads and just winning some gravel on the road verge, taking the topsoil off, and some of the material has been known to be suitable to put on roads.
Okay, maybe I'll come back to that.
In the disturbed
One
zone.
of the examples that we looked at, I think it was on Doctor's Flat. Again, it had a quarry that had been opened up, you would say, on the side of the road, just not too far from the side. The issue there is you were digging into a material, mudstone, partly formed mudstone, that was really quite muddy. And if you're trying to get long-term performance, that would be a challenge. If you can keep its shape on a low-volume road, a good crown on it, it might last. It might be slippery and in the wet would be the other thing, and traction on hills.
So I know the quarry you're talking about there, but there's other quarries in the Shire. There's decent material that has been pulled out previously. As long as they get the drains working properly, that material should work on low volume roads, correct?
It should do if you can, but you'll probably need to raise the road a bit, because I think what's happening over time is the crown has just gone seriously down. If you can restore a deep crown and keep that shape, that would definitely buy time into the future in the lowest volume. Just be careful about the hills and the bends and that when speed comes into it and traction in the wet.
Absolutely.
I guess one thing I'll also touch on with that, I know in the past, well, at least my experience with councils in general, they try and source local resources outside of the road corridor. Now, obviously, we know it is a challenge that them, but yeah, mines are meant to be registered with New South Wales Resources and obviously have safety and environmental plans in place. So I know it can be a challenge that, yeah, you've got people that like, you know, the council might have sourced that material for 50 years and telling them, no, it's not available. Yeah, as I reiterated, it's a challenge, but yeah, it's quite simply it's the framework that we work in now. We need to have those environmental plans in place.
Absolutely.
Follow-on question about the all-over access that you're recommending. Oh, sorry, all
weather.
I thought it was all-over access in terms of looking at those low access roads and only doing those or segments of those. One of the issues that we have in Yass Valley is the last mile to the farm gate, and it's a combination of road is only getting graded every 3 years, but it's supposed to be graded every year. Farmer needs to get his 4-deck livestock transport in, can't do it, has to then do 4 trucks to get the same amount of livestock out. And they don't know when to schedule, because what should be a 1-year grade event is now stretched to 3. So they're making decisions for their business based on it. So our inability to meet the schedule that we have is impacting on businesses. But what I wanted to understand is, when you looked at our low access roads, are you looking at it as from an economic development point of view as well, noticing what's on the road, like that there are farms on these roads, or are you looking at rural res? Because I would be very worried about reducing service on some of these low access roads when indeed they might have some very significant farming economies attached to them.
Sure. I take your point, and it's very important, is making those distinctions. Are they for residents who have chosen to live in the lovely country? I mean, going out on some of these tracks is terrific. It's my hobby. But where you've got real production happening in the way that you say, that simply pushes it up the priority order right away. So being able to make that distinction, having that
put it in the matrix. Okay.
Put it in the matrix. It's definitely there.
Okay.
I guess to read out what Ty's saying there is, yeah, when the roads are classified, and depending on whether it's going to be all weather or not, there's a value analysis that has to go into that, and it's not just value to council. It's value to whether it's business or residential. It's value to the use of that road. So yeah, it definitely needs to be factored in. Yeah, commercial operations. Agreed.
What about a mother and her children living down that road and not being able to get out or something in the event of an emergency?
So the essential is the all weather. And it's a bit like, you know, we've got farm tracks, etc. Being able to drive over that in all weather. What might be one of the challenges, and which can be lost quite quickly in storms, etc., are the stream crossings. Not controlling drainage and getting washouts down the road. Now we know if we control drainage, we can get longevity in terms of performance. The critical access points, like safely across wet crossings, etc., those are a challenge, and it's that life and limb thing that you're talking about. It's making sure you're at least providing that.
That's right.
So getting the balance is simply, and just, you know, if you do it bottom up and the community, and you're making it quite transparent what your choices are and the circumstances you really need to support, communicate it to the community. That's why, you know, your roads might be slightly rougher and maybe not so comfortable and so speedy, but you're getting the access, the essential access working, including in times of need.
Tyrone, also in your report, you say about level of plasticity in the Bald Hill material that you're using on the roads. Guy's got a, I think it's $1 million contract there with Bald Hill. Is that correct? Something like that.
I know there's work, there's supply going on. I don't know how much.
So it's, I think it's $1 million, but yeah, the quality of the material that we choose to put on our roads that determines how long things last as well. Like you're talking about the mudstone.
Of course.
So we've got to make sure we're putting the right material on in the right spots.
Sure. And I took out one of the graphs. I can, you know, I've done it in my life. You can be, you know, 5 millimeters a year per 100 vehicles a day, or you pick the wrong stuff and it's finished in no time. Yeah. So again, I think your team are addressing that. I did have a graph just to show you that relative rate is important, and that's why you pay a little more, or you go and bring it and haul it. It will last, and I think getting out of the perpetual, you know, being in the hole is important.
I've got two more questions, and then I'm going to get the councillors to unpack what they want to ask you. In the report, it talks about the pavement replacement going from 60 to 130 years in sealed and 15 to 20 for unsealed, out to 38 years. That's our current trajectory, is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
What will roads look like, or how big does the task then become? Will we see our roads dropping from one end of the spectrum on the category down, and so the task becomes larger and larger to replace? Where are we headed if this, and what's the kind of the point of no return before it becomes not a $10 million a year, but then a $50 million a year to actually reconstruct roads? What window do we have to act is, I guess, my question. Sorry, I'm being there.
Sure. Look, I did.
Oh, we lost him.
It's you now, Brendan.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'll let Ty continue when he comes back, but I guess the main thing, he's coming back. You there, Ty?
Yes, I'm back. I don't know what happened. I'm up here in Brisbane. But look, we've not done any, you know, forward modelling. But if you're already at such budget levels, your funding at the moment is about half a sustainable level of funding. If you didn't have the backlog, now you have a big backlog, so the sustainable level of fundings when you bring it into a reasonable state of reasonable condition. So that needs upfront money to gradually bring it into condition. But look, without trying to crystal ball anymore with any analysis, I'd be saying 5 to 10. There are one of the things that I always encourage, if on your sealed roads, for instance, you've got a firm foundation, then it's going to be reshaping, correcting, resurfacing them. It won't be deep in the pavement, and I suspect that might be very beneficial in your area, in that hilly kind of area. You've usually got your foundation can be weak in places, but not overly so if you catch it right. I'd be saying treatment strategies will be very important, and have your team address that. If you've got a reasonable foundation, it's misshaping, it's falling from the top, a bit like a weatherboard, fix it up at the top and buy some time and stretch the dollar
And with
get
the
kilometres.
With the 10 million per annum capital renewal plus maintenance, what is the percentage that we need to look at? Because there's two segments there, maintenance and capital renewal. Can you break that down for us as to what if we could spend 10 million, is that a 50-50, or is that we've got to go 80% maintenance because they're at such a point, or is it capital renewal because they're at worse state than we thought? Like what are we looking at?
I'd probably say, because what you're treating capital is in the way you deal with it, what I would call, what should be part of the maintenance budget is resurfacing. But resurfacing in your program is capital. So I'd be saying you probably put about 60% into resurfacing and preparatory patching, etc., so that you're preparing the existing surface to take a reasonably low-cost treatment. And I'd be, like I say, suggesting something like 60% effort into there, 20% into ongoing maintenance, 20% into capital, and into bigger rehabilitation. You just need to be very careful that you don't spend, let's say, $200 a square meter on a few kilometers when there's tens and tens of kilometers to be done and saved with appropriate, what I would call light rehabilitation treatments, including resurfacing. So that mix is, and that's where you need to catch that as soon as possible. Otherwise, the stitch in time idea and corrector layers would be lost. You'll be rebuilding, and you don't want to be rebuilding.
I guess
Sorry.
I was going to say I can at least add on to Ty's comments a bit for both of those questions. I mean, what do you see over time? You see more reactive maintenance, more maintenance period, because you're starting to see your network get its condition become more and more unpredictable. And that's not just unsealed roads, that sealed roads as well, you'd see more defects. With regards to if you receive money to try and sort out this backlog, yes, agree that there's obviously the capital side is where you're going to get a lot of the benefit, but again, it can't be just like we've essentially got to do business cases of where that money's going to go on the capital side to try and get that bang for your buck, and not just gold plate a particular part of the network, as Tyrone said.
And you talked about flushing, which is very topical in Yass Valley. We seem to see a lot of new roads with flushing on it. Now, some would argue that this is because we've got more heavy vehicles moving in our area than predicted for the road that it was built. We've got illegal dumping, which brings a lot more trucks in than we might want. We've got state significant projects. How would you go about approaching the recipe for constructing these roads, particularly I think some are connecting with regional roads, knowing that we've got all these kind of shadow statistics floating around in Yass Valley, that some of them are completely out of our control, like state significant projects. How do we construct roads going forward, knowing that we've got these heavy, seem to be more heavy vehicle movements than anticipated?
Shall I have a go? Look, the key is get a handle on the traffic. Usually what I find, and I put it this way, the solutions, if you've got the very basic input data, including on traffic, axle loads, etc., volumes of increase, and you talk about development areas and things like that that might accelerate a bit more, that input data is a lot more important than somebody trying to play with, say, some mechanistic, empirical computer program to say you need this treatment. The key is the inputs. You get the data, you understand the soil data, the existing condition of the road as well, and you then use that data, pick the right treatment, design the surfacings appropriately. Don't because it will bite you very quickly. If it's either a construction or a design problem with a surfacing, it hits you right away, as you were mentioned. That development subdivision didn't take into account the heavy vehicles that even lead to its construction, and it fails almost immediately and flushes, etc. So getting that, now there's good guidance in that space. And when it comes to surfacings, you know, don't skimp. If it's a $10 was the old treatment, but what you need is $20 and it lasts a significant time. If it's a sprayed seal with a bigger chip, etc., and a modified binder, that's where to put the money and get the right advice on that.
I guess to add on to Tyrone, yes, the traffic is important as well. With regards to flushing, the most likely time you're going to find flushing is whilst the road's still relatively soft in the first couple of months. So, and I guess the thing with that is obviously having good plans in place of the traffic, both what you're going to get immediately and long term, needs to be factored into the design.
It will be specialist more than advised rather than general to get these things right. And I think that's
spray seals. Spray seals, there's specifications around them because there is a bit of complexity to them. So I guess the main thing is following those specifications, including traffic design, sealing with appropriate temperatures. It's just as examples.
Councillors, do we have any further questions?
Sorry, only one. Will you get a copy of that slide deck?
Yeah.
McGrath?
Of course.
Okay. Councillor Rothwell?
Didn't have anything to say in your report about roadside vegetation or anything. You asked to look at anything like that?
Not specifically, but
just a lot of trees growing up, and you can't see the guideposts, road signs.
To me, all of these things need to be addressed. They should be, I mean, what I would, if anything, if it was an extra slide I would use the must-dos, which includes being able to see vegetation growth and being allowed to do it. You're not replacing ancient trees and other things like that. It should be maintained.
They haven't been maintained for 5 years. Once they hit that 10-year mark, or 100 millimetres, I think it is, isn't it? You've got to get permission to chop them down.
Once they leave being a sapling, there's more hoops to jump through in removing a tree. Yep.
So keeping on top of that, because as you say, you get into a problem, you get into a safety problem as well when people hit a tree, is a must do.
Same as slashing to maintain the sight lines to the guideposts as well. Yeah.
One last question about best practice. When a road is being regraded, are you supposed to take out the guideposts and then re-put them in, or is the modern way to go over the top of them?
Look, if you take, sorry, if your technique requires you to, to really shape the side of the roadside in such a way that the markers would be otherwise be knocked over, take them out and put them back.
If you're going to pull the material in that's blown out off the road into the drain, you need to pull them out, get that material in on the road.
Sure. Yes. If that material is worth fetching, etc.
That's right.
Then do it and restore them.
I've got a question. With the grass growing along the side of the road, I was always told on bitumen roads, grass and the little trees growing along the side, it lets all the water go in underneath bitumen and start to lift up. Is that true?
Well, what I'd say is ventilation is always a good thing. So take away the vegetation, etc., as much as you can, keep it down, and the road will be aerated and it'll perform better.
To spray them all the time.
Right, councillors, I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. Toole and Mr. Williams for their presentation very much, and we'll hopefully see you both on Thursday evening online if we've got further questions.
I think
You'll see us in person.
in person.
Oh, terrific. Terrific.
If it's not too scary.
Fantastic. Thanks again for this excellent report.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that now concludes our live stream of